Hi, I'm Elizabeth and today I want to talk about what I'm currently reading and what my reading plans for the foreseeable future is. And today those two are 100% linked. And the reason for that is that I have a very recognizable pattern for how I'm reading when I'm stressed. And right now there's a lot happening at work and my brain is full of thoughts and ideas and to-do lists and whatever, and that has an impact on my reading. You might think that makes you stop reading because you're so preoccupied with everything else, and that's not what happens in my case. Instead, I tend to read everything at once. And the reason for this is that I use reading as a reward when I get stressed. So I'm allowed to read if I have done my job or if I just need a break. I'm allotted like 30 minutes of reading time by myself. I also reward myself with chocolate, but that seems somehow less relevant to this channel, so let's ignore that. So yeah, I reward myself with allotted reading time, and when reading is a reward, it feels even more important to enjoy what I'm reading, and that what I'm reading at that moment is exactly what I want to be reading at that moment. And that means I start all of the books. So right now I am currently reading, or actively reading, even 6 books. And that's actually a low number for me when I'm in a situation like this. But it might be argued that this is the beginning of this, so I might start even more before the spiral ends or turns and I start finishing off books instead. But yeah, right now I'm currently reading 6 books and I haven't finished a single book in the week that went by because I'm reading a little bit of this and a little bit of that and not really making headway in any of them. But yeah, I am currently listening to Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, which is a fantasy novel, the first in a trilogy that also contains Grey Sister and Holy Sister. So in this book we meet Nonna, who is condemned to death, and she's saved from the gallows by an abbess who takes her to the convent where Nonna is made into a novice. And this is not your average kind of convent. They are training fighting nuns, and there's a lot of stuff happening in this book. It's fairly fast-paced and entertaining. It's engaging. To my eyes, the most telling tale of a book or a story, an audiobook really engaging me, is that it makes me want to do the dishes, and this book has done that, so I am probably gonna binge the entire series, knowing me and my patterns when it comes to audiobooks. But yeah, I'm probably not going to spend much time on that during this weekend though, because audiobooks is mostly for my commute. So I think I'm going to finish that next week based on how long I have left of the book. But then I'm probably just going to go straight to the second book in the series. Then I'm also reading a book that I have been currently reading for a while. It's The Horse, the Wheel and Language by David W. Anthony. This is a book about the Indo-European language family. I am 180 pages into this. It started off super interesting with all the linguistic parts, and then it's gone into more detailed archaeological passages, which I do find harder to read. I still think it's interesting, but I'm reading this very slowly now, and it's kind of taking the back seat to all of the other books I'm going to show you. And because that was getting a bit harder, I wanted another non-fiction book that was a bit more engaging in the way it was telling the story, so I picked up Medieval Bodies by Jack Hartnell. This is a book that a lot of you had comments about and said looked interesting when I showed it in a haul, and that made me want to pick it up and read it right now as well. It deals with medieval history, but using the body as a starting point to talk about various aspects of medieval history and daily life. It also involves a lot of art, and it's very richly, beautifully illustrated with colors on the inside as well, and it's a very good book. I'm really enjoying it, but I don't have the patience to sit down and read just this book. at the moment, so it has to share my time with a lot of others as well. So I wanted to pick up a novel, and I chose this one, Faces in the Water by Janet Frame. This is a book about a woman who is living in a mental institution, and it's beautifully written, but again, I don't have the patience to stick with just this, and I think for this one it's a fairly character-driven book. There's not a lot of action happening, so I am enjoying it while I'm reading it, but then the next time I want to read something, it just might not be this book I'm picking up. You see the faces on the cover here. I noticed that for the first time like last week, but it's gorgeous. But yeah, the book is very good, and I will finish it, but it's gonna take a time. Then last week I finished this book, which is called Free Woman by Lara Feigl, and this book I will be talking about in a different video, but that's a book about Doris Lessing, and it made me realize it's been a while since I read a Doris Lessing novel, so I thought, time to change that. I need to read one right now, can't wait until I finish the others. So I picked up A Ripple from the Storm, which is the third book in the Children of Violence series that tells the story of the life of a woman called Martha Quest, who has a lot in common with Doris Lessing herself. In this third book, she is joining a communist group, and basically we follow her going around town doing jobs for this communist group and participating in various kinds of meetings and having political discussions with a lot of people. So again, a novel which isn't exactly a page-turner. There's not that much plot to speak of, but it's still interesting, and I'm still enjoying learning more about the life of Martha Quest. I am, however, looking very much forward to reading the next two books in this series, because I've heard that those two books are more experimental in form, and I'm enjoying Lessing the most when she's experimental in form. But before I get to them, I need to finish this, and I think I'm at page 95 at the moment. But this is one I have been making headway on this week, because I started it this week, so 95 pages in a week isn't too bad, actually. And then the final book that I've picked up this week is one that I'm actually reading for work, and it's this one called Good to Great by Jim Collins. This is supposed to be one of those seminal works about how you should organize a business, and it's one of the favorite books, I think, of my boss, or the boss of my company, the CEO, and she bought 3 copies for the office as a lending library because she wanted us to read the book. So I picked it up, and I'm planning on spending this weekend finishing it. I read 180 pages so far, and I started it 2 days ago, so this is probably the one that I'm gonna focus on finishing first, just because reading this somehow feels okay because it is work related, so I'm allowing myself more time with this book because I can justify that to myself more than I can with reading the other books. Also, it is interesting, so there's that. So hopefully this is what I'm gonna be reading for the next week, and hopefully that will mean I will actually finish some of these books rather than picking up new ones, because even though I'm fine with reading multiple books at a time, if it gets much more than 6 at a time, I tend to be stressed out by that instead, because I'm not making headway, I'm not finishing anything, and at some point that starts becoming a problem for me as well. And when I'm reading to relieve stress, having reading patterns that actually create stress is not a good idea. So yeah, I am gonna try to focus on finishing some of these, and next time I'm probably gonna be talking about this one and some thoughts I had around this, because this made me have a lot of thoughts. But for now, this is all, so until next time, bye bye.